Hello, happy live, happy Wednesday. I hope you guys are all enjoying your short work week. I'm going to do my normal and dive into real estate updates, answer some of your guys' questions, and do some happy news as well. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask. Otherwise, I will just gab away. Also, a reminder, we have our 1% listing commission, as well as if we don't sell your home, we guarantee that we'll buy it for cash. And if you don't like your home within the year that you move in, we will also sell it for free. Okay? All right, so I'm going to dive into the first question. The first question comes from Caroline and Fred, and they are in Barrie. Caroline and Fred said, we have an above ground pool. Do people really not like them? We plan on selling next year, but are thinking of removing it this year if that's the case. Thank you, Caroline and Fred, for asking. So to be honest, if people like pools, they do normally like in-ground pools. So some people do, kind of shy away from above ground pools. Not a big sense. They just think like, oh, the grass is going to be dead underneath or what have you. But pools definitely did go up in, basically desire during COVID, just because there wasn't a lot to do with the kids and stuff. And obviously the prices of them went up and so forth. So some people still like them. And so I would hate for you to take it away and sod it, etc. And then somebody's like, oh, I would have liked the pool. Do you know what I mean? I would just offer when you list it for sale next year that it would just say, pool is included. However, if buyer doesn't want pool, seller will, resod or what have you. And then you could just sell it to somebody on Kijiji or something like that. So thank you for asking. So I'm just going to do some, again, questions and happy news before we do the real estate, okay? So there was a 74-year-old lady, and she rang the bell. Actually, she didn't ring the bell. Her daughter rang the bell, after you have cancer treatment. So her daughter rang the bell that she was done celebrating, okay, I just did all my treatment for breast cancer. And the 74-year-old mom who had paid for a treatment because it was in the States and it wasn't covered under her insurance, went and bought a lottery ticket, and she won $2 million. So she was super pumped, obviously, one, for her daughter's health, and then obviously the $2 million didn't hurt either. So I like that. The next question comes from Greg, and Greg is in Innisfil. Greg said, am I able to buy a home first and then list my home? I'm afraid I won't find a place I like and be stuck. Thank you, Greg, for asking. So yeah, you can buy a home first. The only thing is that most people don't like conditional on the sale of a house. So let's just say you say, hey, I love 123 Main Street, but I have to sell my place. Normally they don't like that because then they're waiting on you, and then they buy, but they're waiting, it's a big domino effect. So some people will take it, specifically those that have been listed longer or that aren't in as hot of markets, but most people don't like it. So I would just suggest, talking with a realtor and saying, okay, here, this is where I want to be. And they can show you, yes, these homes exist. And then you can sell your property, or you sell your property first and you just do a really long closing date and you find somewhere in there. You can also do a reverse condition. So normally conditions protect the buyers. So it's like finance, inspection, etc. But you can do a reverse condition, which protects you, the seller. So you can say, hey, I want 30 days to find suitable accommodation. If I don't find suitable accommodation, then this deal is null and void. So we had somebody, it's not common, we had somebody this year out by Ramera who did that, and he had 2 weeks to find suitable accommodation. He didn't find it. He asked for a week longer, didn't find it, and we released the contract. Then he found suitable accommodation a few weeks later, and we resold the property, but it is an option that you can put in there. Thank you for asking. So next little bit of good news is, not Mount Everest isn't good news, but I, for example, have flown around in a plane around Mount Everest, and it was never anything that I thought of climbing. So a lot of people, one, you pay a lot of money to do it, and two, a lot of people die. Okay, so that is why I never had a desire to do it. However, there was a new world record just broken by a man who just climbed to the top, and he has no legs. So right above his knees were amputated. He was in Afghanistan and lost his legs fighting, and he just can't climb Mount Everest, which is insane to me. So he started it to the day 13 years after he lost his legs. So when he first lost his legs, he suffered from depression and alcoholism, etc. He tried to take his life a few times, but then he started to obviously get in a better headspace and so forth. So at first they didn't allow disabled people to climb because they said, we lose enough people as it is. We don't need to lose more. And he was determined, and eventually climbed it. And he had different prosthetics. So some of them even had like little ice picks built into the prosthetic at the end. And so he climbed it. So that was amazing. And he said he wants to go back to the spot where he lost his legs, and he wants to thank the area because he said without it, he would have never climbed Mount Everest and he wouldn't be the person that he is today. So again, I just like happy news. We all know where we can find non-happy news, upset news, sad news, etc. So I just like happy news. So just giving you guys some happy news mixed in with your real estate updates. I hope you guys are all doing well. Question is from Kelsey and Grant, and they live in Orangeville. Kelsey and Grant said, we have a basement apartment and a garage bachelor apartment. We want to sell but don't want to flag with bylaw. Any suggestions? Kelsey and Grant, so you do obviously run the risk of that, because let's just say, you know, you put it for sale and you advertise that there's 3 bathrooms, then, you know, and it's a single family zone property, then that's not going to be the greatest. You could always just advertise it as a basement apartment and say it's a non-legal in-law suite. And then, you know, when the people come, they can see the 3rd suite. Or you could have in the private remarks, or you could tell the realtors ahead of time that you have a 3rd suite, but you do run the chance of a realtor, you know, telling on you, or let's just say a realtor shows your neighbors and they're like, hey, that's not allowed, or I would have had that, and somebody could obviously tell on you. Or you could just say no viewing of the apartment until you have an accepted offer, and then you just limit the amount of people through there. You could pretend that you have like guns or tools or something like that in the garage, and then eventually just show them that you have an apartment in the garage. But you do unfortunately risk that. But to be honest, I've seen it lots of times. I've seen people divide homes up into like 6 homes and or 6 little apartments, and they still sell it. So I would just show the 2 apartments. I wouldn't show the 3rd apartment. So that's what I would do. If you guys have any other questions, feel free to call me at the office. Next, a little bit of happy news before we jump into real estate updates. There was 4 children, and they were found in Colombia in a rainforest. And they were in this little prop plane. It crashed, and the 3 adults that were on it died. There was a 14-year-old, an 11-year-old, a 4-year-old, 13, 11, 4, and 11-month-old. And they all survived for 2 weeks in the rainforest before people found them. They used like palm leaves and stuff for shelter, and they survived off of berries and fruit, which is crazy. So they're all well and rescued. So that was nice. Okay, so I'm going to do real estate news. Again, if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask. Otherwise, I will just blab away. So last week I was giving more specifics into areas like Wasaga, Oro, Aurelia, and so forth. And a lot of people are just asking what's going on with the real estate market. So it's definitely been super busy. So you probably know that last year, 7 times the interest rates went up. Once this year, the interest rate went up, which was January 25th. And then the next 2 times the interest did not go up. One was March and one was April. So they did not go up. So that is basically, I say put a fire under people's butts, but basically got buyers excited to get back into the market. Some of them were on the sidelines, or some were just waiting, not knowing what was going to happen, etc. Maybe they had a variable rate and they were worried. But now with the last 2 times Bank of Canada said, hey, we're keeping at 4.5%, then they're excited. And again, we have seen bidding wars come back. It's not as insane as last year, but it definitely is super busy, and lots of people, I'd say it depends on the price actually. I'd say under 800, I'd say we see 50% bidding wars. And then obviously the over 800, we don't see as many. I'd say like 1 in 15, just because it's not as common to have a bidding war when you have a higher priced property. So the next rate possible increase is June 7th. And then July 12th is the next one, then September 6th, and then October 25th and December 6th. But there's 2 economists basically right now that are saying the next time they think that the rates are going to go up, and everybody else is saying they think for the rest of 2023, the rates are going to stay the same, and then in 2024, they're going to come down. So majority of the economists, almost 98%, are saying that they're going to stay the same for the rest of 2023 and then come down. So that is that. And they are 4.5, like I mentioned. So there was just a study, there's 2 studies actually, one done right before basically COVID, so early 2020, it was about investors. So they said only 0.5% of investors were living out of the country, majority of them were over 55, and majority of them were immigrants. Now there's a new study that just came out, and actually yesterday, and it said more people own investment properties that were immigrants to Canada before 2010 than people that actually were born in Canada, which I thought was interesting. So I don't know, I feel like maybe they're making, you know, they've come from something, they realize that they have an opportunity in Canada or what have you, and they want to set their kids up so they don't have to go, their kids don't have to go through what they went through and any hardships, etc. So I thought that was interesting. So there was also a study from Statistics Canada, and it said that 15% of all homes in Ontario are investor owned, and 42% of all condos are investor owned. And in BC, 9.6% of investor properties, they actually live in the property, which I thought was a little bit weird. So they have like a laneway suite or a basement apartment, or it's a triplex or a duplex, and only 0.8%, which is probably why I think it's weird since I live in Ontario, only 0.8% of properties in Ontario does the investor live in the property. So I have a bunch of investments. I obviously don't live in them. There's one that I sometimes live in, but the rest I don't. So I guess I could possibly fall under that. But whereas in BC, they have almost 1/10 of the properties they actually live in them. So the economists are saying that so for example, Vancouver and Victoria, that they have such a high density and so many people, etc. So they've done all these laneway suites and etc. But they've been doing it over for more than a decade, whereas Toronto's only started to introduce it in the past couple of years, and they haven't really pushed it. So they're saying that's why we don't have as many of those suites, but they have started pushing those suites in Toronto more recently. And in May of this year, they also turned single-family residential. They said that single-family residential can be made into multiplex. So let's just say you've lived on this gorgeous street in Toronto for years with all these big 5,000 square foot homes, and they were only zoned to be one unit. Now they can split them up into like 10 units or whatever. Obviously, they have to be to code and fire safety and means of egress, etc. But they're trying to get more dense because they want to be close to the parks, close to transit, etc. in Toronto. There was a person, Sean Hildebrand. He's the president of urbanization. He does a lot of research on development and stuff. And he said we either have to do that, like high density, make it so people can have way more apartments, etc., or we have to build way more new homes a lot quicker because we just don't have the number of homes that we need for the amount of people that are here already that are coming into, buying a home, etc., age-wise, and immigration. So in 2023, in April, the number of homes was up 10%, basically the number of homes that had sold in all of Ontario. And with the announcements of all the rate holds and so forth, and then buyers' confidence, that's really skyrocketed things. And what else? The average price went up 3.7%. That's in all of Ontario, not just Toronto, not just Barrie, etc., in all of Ontario. And what else? I know. So there's a bunch of articles right now saying that people should get into the market before the prices go up again. They're saying we've hit the bottom and so forth. And because of the 400,000 plus immigrants that came last year, the over 400,000 that are supposed to come this year, and the 485,000 that are supposed to come next year, they're just saying that there's no way, the amount of homes that we have and all the people coming, etc., that there's no way that the prices will not go up. So they're just saying to get in now. So there are a lot of places that actually have gone up the amount of homes sold this year over last year, even though obviously the prices were higher last year. So Ottawa has gone up 25.66%. So 25.66% more homes sold in Ottawa this past April than last year, April. Waterloo went up over 13%. Whitby went up over 12%. Ancaster over 10%. Cambridge over 7%. North York over 7%. Richmond Hill over 5%, as well as Brantford over 5%. Mississauga was just up over 4% and change, and Burlington was up over 3%, and Vaughan was up over 1%. But obviously, homes are still selling way more than they were last year, even though the prices are lower than last year, but the prices are higher than any other year. So as long as you weren't a first-time buyer in, February, March, April, May of 2022, then you're fine. Even if, people say, well, yeah, but what if I bought and I wasn't a first-time buyer and I bought in March of 2022 or something like that? But you bought, but you also sold. So you probably sold your house for $300,000 higher and you bought for $300,000 higher, so it comes out in the wash. But if somebody just buys for $300,000 higher and they were a first-time buyer, that's when it really, really hurts. Then tack on the 8 times the interest rates went up, then that is the problem. So that is the only people, or those are the only people, I should say, that are kind of in a bad situation right now. So CEO Robin Sherian said, things look bright for sellers. He said buyers need to act fast. He said demand will not match supply and prices will go up again. So that is, again, what a majority of economists are saying. Also, there was another economist that said controlled inflation and stable interest rates will boost the market, therefore increasing sales and increasing pricing. So like I said, it has been crazy busy. I'd say honestly since about Easter long weekend is kind of when it started. So the average price of a home in Canada in April was 716,000 and change 083 if you want to know exactly, which was obviously down over April of last year, but it was up 104,000 from the average in January. So just from the average in January to the average in April was up 104,000 in Canada. So obviously the market's picked up quite a bit. So with all the low inventory, but still the surge of buyers trying to get into the market now that the last two times the interest rates have not gone, they've stayed the same, stayed at the 4.5. Basically, the sellers are back in the driver's seat now because now they're, hey, you know, all these buyers and everybody's trying to get in, etc. So they are really feeling that, okay, I can ask what I want, I can hold offers and so forth. So that's something that we're definitely noticing. And not just locally, but across Canada is feeling this. So Vancouver, Victoria, Edmonton, Calgary, Montreal, Winnipeg, Ottawa, Halifax, they are all doing better than they were in March, April, January. There are 3 places that are not doing better. Prince Edward Island is one. Trois Rivières. That I kind of said that Spanish instead of French. I don't know how you say that. Trois Rivières. I don't know, in Quebec. And Saskatoon. Those are the only places that are going down right now over last month and February. A president and economist of RBC, so he said Canada's real estate price correction is over. He said home prices have bottomed out, and if buyer demand continues, we will see further gains in home prices. So that's that. Next question comes from Siobhan, and Siobhan's in Oro. Siobhan said, my husband and I follow you and love that you are an investor yourself and do it and preach it. Don't just do it and preach it, but actually have the knowledge. What made you want to invest and how did you start? Thank you, Siobhan, for asking. Sorry, I read your question wrong. Thank you, Siobhan, for asking. To be honest, I just saw prices going up when I was younger and I wanted to buy homes, and some people in my life said, don't, buy it, tenants will wreck it, you'll need biker gang to get them out because they won't pay you, etc. So I heard all these horror stories, so I wasn't buying anything, but then I kept seeing the prices going up, and in the meantime I was buying cars and they were not going up. So, I'd buy a car new, I'd sell it a couple of years later, lose money, buy a car new, sell it a couple of years later. So I was like, even if I lose money in real estate, I'm already losing money in cars, so I might as well try. So I tried, and obviously I didn't lose money, so that was why I got in. Thank you for asking. And if you have any other questions, I would be happy to connect, Siobhan. So back to some happy news. There was a man in jail for 29 years, which is not, happy news. But he did get out, which is happy news. So he was in jail, for 29 years, and he was convicted of raping his stepdaughter who was 6. But then they didn't have the little girl testify. So there was just a person that said, oh, she told me this, and that person testified, but the little girl never testified, I guess because of her age. And then for 20 years, she's fought to try and get him out, and he finally just got out earlier this month. So obviously that was a lovely story, not the whole 29 years, but the getting out part. Next question comes from Jeff, and Jeff is in Hillsdale. Jeff said, we back onto the subdivision that's being built. Should we sell sooner than later or wait until those homes are almost done? Thank you, Jeff. I know exactly where you are. We actually sold there last year, not because they were building, just because the people were moving. I forget, they moved west, those people. So yeah, obviously there's a bit of noise and construction and dust and so forth. It's a bit annoying while building, but I know you guys have long properties there, like very deep. You're not like a shallow little lot. So, even if you did wait and it was on construction, it would still be okay. And then obviously you have more of the city people up there that are paying the high prices for that. So you could do that. But to be honest, your value is not going to be, it's going to be so much lower right now if you sold or what have you, just because, the interest rates and so forth. So I would just see, okay, what do you need and where are you going on the other end? Because if you could sell right now for $850 and that makes sense for you on the other end, then might as well do that. Because let's just say your house could go up to $925, but then the home that you're buying on the other side has also gone up. Do you know what I mean? So it comes out in the wash. But thank you for asking. One more thing of good news, and we'll do a couple more questions. Sometimes I feel like dogs just know when something's wrong with somebody. So there was a lady, she has grown up in England, she's 44, she's lived with lupus her whole life, and they said basically if she didn't have a kidney transplant in the next 5 years, she would pass away. So she was on the list waiting. She was camping one time with her 2 Dobermans, and her Doberman kept going over and bugging this lady. And after the 3rd time, she went over and apologized and said, I'm so sorry for my dog. invited her over for a barbecue, ended up getting, they were chatting and so forth. They exchanged numbers and she found out about her health and so forth. She tested herself and turns out that she was an exact match for her kidney transplant. And the doctors said that was like a 1 in 22 million chance that that lady would be a match. So they have since done the surgery. And the 40-year-old and the 44-year-old who got the transplant are both healthy and well. So again, I like happy stories. Next question comes from Claire, and Claire is in Stroud. Claire said, my granddaughter says I should take all my borders and wallpaper down before selling and get rid of all of my knickknacks. How much difference will that really make? Thank you, Claire, for asking. So it depends, obviously, in Stroud at the time how many homes are on the market. So if, for example, there are 6 and all 6 show really well and they've been decluttered, so we often say the 3Ds. Caitlin on my team actually introduced that to us. We didn't have it as precise, so thank you, Caitlin. So declutter, depersonalize, and deep clean. So let's say all 6 of them had that and you did not per se, or maybe it was a little bit dusty or some cobwebs, and you have the wallpaper and you have the borders. Obviously, they're going to most likely go for theirs. However, there are some people that want to do the elbow grease and they're like, hey, let me do the work myself. Let me this, let me that, and so forth. But they do want it at a discount. There's no set amount of what they want as a discount, but they would want it at a discount, if I could speak properly. But if there's not a lot to choose from, then that still puts you in the driver's seat. So I would just see, how many actives are comparable to yours and so forth, so you can see, how much competition you have, etc. Because let's just say you take however long to get ready. Let's just say you take till September 1st to get ready. Most people want to move in the summer. So if you have a family home and people are planning on moving in with kids, etc., they don't want to be moving, you list in September and then they're moving in the middle of October or November. That's not as ideal for them. So if you are in a family type neighborhood, etc., I would suggest listing sooner than later, even if you don't take down your wallpaper, etc. If you're in a 1-bedroom condo, it's not going to be for a family anyway, so then you could do that. And maybe since she suggested it, maybe she could come over and help you do it. I don't know. She probably won't like me that I said that, but anyways, thank you for asking. What else do we have? There was a grandma, a little old lady, and she was 93, and she wanted to visit every national park before she passed. And so her grandson said, okay, I will help you. He is a veterinarian, or is. So they started in 2015. They just finished earlier this year. And even though she's finished, she said she's not done. She now wants to go to Kenya and go to the 7 continents. So I just like that because, some people just say, oh, I'm retired, I'm done. And they sit on their front, rocker and knit or what have you, and don't explore and don't do what they want to do. So I like that she wanted to do that and she decided to do it and did it. So I like that. Next question comes from, I think I did it. I did all the questions. I lied. I did all the questions. Thank you guys for watching. Have a super evening. Any questions, don't hesitate to call us at the office, 705-726-7000. Again, 705-726-7000. Feel free to ask us about our 1% listing commission. We've also won #1 top choice real estate brokerage in Barrie the past 4 years in a row. We guarantee to sell your home. If we can't, we will buy it for cash, as well as if you don't like your home on the other end, for 1 year, we will sell it for free. Feel free to call us for details. Again, 705-726-7000. Stay kind to one another. Have a beautiful evening, and don't be afraid to go after your dreams. Take care.